بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers, and welcome tonight to the commemoration of the istishhad of Imam Al-Redha alayhi salam, one of our esteemed imams, an imam that had a very opportunistic time to be able to preach Islam, but was then backstabbed and tortured by the caliph of the time. So we're here tonight to, inshallah, remember him and remember his time, and to be able to allow our hearts to feel what he felt, and to, inshallah, benefit from the barakah and the reward of this night. Inshallah, to begin and bless tonight's majlis, let us begin with the recitation of the Holy Quran, blessed by our esteemed brother Ali Mahi. Welcome him with a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحاقة ما الحاقة وما أدراك ما الحاقة كذبت ثمود وعاد بالقارعة فأما ثمود فأهلكوا بالطاغية وأما عاد فأهلكوا بريح صرصر عاتية سخرها عليهم 7 ليال و8 أيام حسوما فترى القوم فيها صرعا كأنهم أعجاز نخل خاوية فهل ترى لهم من باقية وجاء فرعون ومن قبله والمؤتفكات بالخاطئة فعصوا رسول ربهم فأخذهم أخذة رابية إنا لما طغى الماء حملناكم في الجارية لنجعلها لكم تذكرة وتعيها أذن واعية فإذا نفخ في الصور نفخة واحدة وحملت الأرض والجبال فدكتا دكة واحدة فيومئذ وقعت الواقعة وانشقت السماء فهي يومئذ واهية والملك على أرجائها ويحمل عرش ربك فوقهم يومئذ ثمانية يومئذ تعرضون لا تخفى منكم خافية فأما من أوتي كتابه بيمينه فيقول هاؤم اقرءوا كتابيه إني ظننت أني ملاق حسابيه فهو في عيشة راضية في جنة عالية صدق الله العلي العظيم. صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سلام على آل ياسين. السلام عليك يا داعي الله ورباني آياته. السلام عليك يا باب الله وديان دينه. السلام عليك يا خليفة الله وناصر حقه. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ودليل إرادته. السلام عليك يا تالي كتاب الله وترجمانه. السلام عليك في آناء ليلك وأطراف نهارك. السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه. السلام عليك يا ميثاق الله الذي أخذه ووكده. السلام عليك يا وعد الله الذي ضمنه. السلام عليك أيها العلم المنصوب والعلم المصبوب والغوث والرحمة الواسعة وعدا غير مكذوب. السلام عليك حين تقوم. السلام عليك حين تقعد. السلام عليك حين تقرأ وتبين. السلام عليك حين تصلي وتقنت. السلام عليك حين تركع وتسجد. السلام عليك حين تهلل وتكبر. السلام عليك حين تحمد وتستغفر. السلام عليك حين تصبح وتمسي السلام عليك في الليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى السلام عليك أيها الإمام المامون السلام عليك أيها المقدم المامول السلام عليك بجوامع السلام أشهدك يا مولاي أني أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدًا عبده ورسوله لا حبيب إلا هو وأهله وأشهدك يا مولاي أن عليا أمير المؤمنين حجته والحسن حجته والحسين حجته وعلي بن الحسين حجته ومحمد بن علي حجته وجعفر بن محمد حجته وموسى بن جعفر حجته وعلي بن موسى حجته ومحمد بن علي حجته وعلي بن محمد حجته والحسن بن علي حجته وأشهد أنك حجة الله أنتم الأول والآخر وأن نجاتكم حق لا ريب فيها يوم لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل أو كسبت في إيمانها خيرا وأن الموت حق وأن ناكرا ونكيرا حق وأشهد أن النشر حق والبعث حق وأن الصراط حق والمرصاد حق والميزان حق والحشر حق والحساب حق والجنة والنار حق والوعد والوعيد بهما حق يا مولاي شقي من خالفكم وسعد من أطاعكم فاشهد على ما أشهدتك عليه وأنا ولي لك بريء من عدوك فالحق ما رضيتموه والباطل ما استختموه والمعروف ما أمرتم به والمنكر ما نهيتم عنه فنفسي مؤمنة بالله وحده لا شريك له وبرسوله وبأمير المؤمنين وبكم يا مولاي أولكم وآخركم ونصرتي معدة لكم ومودتي خالصة لكم آمين آمين محمد وآل محمد
For that beautiful recitation, Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him for every breath a reward and a treat in Jannah, inshallah. A couple of hadiths that we have on Imam Al-Redha alayhi salam. From Imam Al-Sadiq, he said in a hadith, whoever visits Imam Al-Redha while recognizing his rightfulness, the exalted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant him the reward of 70 martyrs from among those truly martyred in front of the Apostle of Allah, meaning Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, which is quite simple to understand. So one person once he asked me a question, he says, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly give reward of such 70 martyrs or 70,000 pilgrimage towards in visitation of Imam Rida alayhi salam. And it's interesting because when we want to give something, we give that which we have in a certain amount. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is infinite. His rewards, they're not limited to a bank account or to family or to whatever materials that we have. So when we say, for example, now if I was to ask you a question, if you want to visit Imam Mahdi or, for example, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, as a question, how much would you give just for a sight? Just to visit him or just to see him, just for a glimpse? You'll pay whatever you can. Bank account, whatever's in your bank account, and so on and so forth, right? And that's you visiting and that's where you have a capacity. Whereas what if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's infinite, has no capacity? This is nothing for him. It's very easy. So, inshallah, it's very easy to understand when we say that the 70,000 pilgrims that are rewarded to the person who visits Imam Rida, it's easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give such a reward. So, inshallah, with that, I welcome our scholar for tonight to bless us with the Majlis. So please welcome him with the Salat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبا القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. أما بعد، يقول الله في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states within the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Ankabut, verse number 2 or ayah number 2, do the people think that they will be left to say we believe and they will not be tested? صدق الله العلي العظيم. Tonight, inshallah, as we commemorate the martyrdom of our beloved Imam, Ali ibn Musa Al-Redha, and in the days that we are commemorating Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, as well as Imam Al-Hasan, alayhi afdal as-salati wa salam, we find ourselves, especially in the West, surrounded by trials, tribulations, that we are constantly being tested, whether it be within our own circles, family, friends, whether it be the circles of education, be it in school, in the workplace, etc. And you'll find, especially nowadays, where there is a push on particular agendas, through social platforms, through courses, through, let's say, categories which are pushed within schools, that all of a sudden we find ourselves in a position whereby our faith is tested, our understanding of religion is tested, how to react to these particular notions are tested. And you'll find one of the first things that come forward is traditions that come and say, as a tradition of Rasulullah, that people at the end of time, becomes so difficult to hold on to your faith, it's as if you're holding on to a whole flaming coal. So many of us, we love our barbecues. When it comes to the heat of the barbecue, many of us cannot bear to be in close proximity to that particular heat. Now, Rasulullah doesn't say that at the end of time, holding on to your faith is like being close towards heat. No, no, no. He says it's as if you're holding on to a flaming coal. That's how difficult it is for you to be steadfast in your religion at the end of time. Now we take this into perspective and we think to ourselves, we understand that there's a reward. There's a reward associated, without a shadow of doubt, for us holding on to our faith in such a difficult situation, being so far away from the lands which are holy and blessed, that contain the shrines, that contain all the knowledge, scriptures, and role models to hold on to. We'll find in one of the traditions found, page 130, in Nafas al-Mahmum, Sheikh Abbas Qummi discusses a particular encounter between two of the companions. Many of us, we see to ourselves that we don't have many companions of the Imams around us. We see snippets of characteristics in people that we hold on to and hold dear to and want to stay close towards them. But never a time can we say that we are one of the companions or we have a companion of the Imam that's in close proximity. So that's why when we read, we try to hold on as much as we can to the stories, the way that they've reacted, to learn from, to apply within our life. Now, there's a tradition in Nafas al-Mahmum, page 130, where there's an encounter between two of the personalities which were the companions of our Imams. The first of which being a personality by the name of Maytham al-Tammar, and the second being Habib ibn Mudahir. Two of the personalities that we all know, admire, look up to. The tradition says that one day in Kufa, they were both riding their horses and they came close, so much so that their horses' necks locked. They say that Habib looks towards Maytham. Look at what he says. He says, it's as if I see a bold man of old age with a big belly that sells watermelon by Darul Rizq. It's as if I see him being hanged or hung and his stomach being punctured in the gallows themselves for the defense of his Imam. Who says this? Habib ibn Mudahir. Maytham replies towards Habib. What does he say? He says, it's as if I see a red-faced man with two long tresses, as he calls them, that will go out in defense of the grandson of Rasulullah, and his head will be paraded in Kufa. Now this happens in Kufa. People are witnessing them. They're thinking to themselves, these guys are such liars that we've never heard anyone speak like this. Their horses' necks unlock and they go their separate ways. When that happens, there's a personality that we need to understand, comprehend, and learn about, which was a companion of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen by the name of Rushayd al-Hajari. Many of us, it's the first time we hear the name Rushayd al-Hajari. Rushayd, alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. Rushayd was known to be one of the great companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that there was only a few people that the Imam entrusted knowledge towards. Amongst them was this personality by the name of Rushayd. Now Rushayd was known by a different name. Rushayd al-Hajari was also known by the title Rushayd al-Balaya wal-Balaya. Why was he known as Rushayd al-Manaya wal-Balaya? It's because Amir al-Mu'mineen entrusted the knowledge that he had to him of the outcome in people's lives. Meaning, you want to know how you end up, how you will die, how you will return towards Allah, the aqibah that you will die upon. You go towards Rushayd and Rushayd will teach you. This is what Amir al-Mu'mineen taught me about how you will pass. Now Rushayd comes to this particular notion. These people, Maytham, Habib ibn Mudahir, just dispersed. Rushayd comes. The people are looking at Rushayd like, hold on, you're Rushayd al-Manaya wal-Balaya, teach us. He says, what's the problem? He says, we saw people that we've never heard such speech from anyone. He says, what did they say? So they recount that which was spoken between Maytham and Habib. You know what Rushayd says? Instead of saying that, no, these guys have no idea what they're talking about. He says, no. They missed an important point that they didn't state. He says, what's the important point that they forgot to state? He replies by saying that he says, Maytham forgot to say that the person that's carrying the head of Habib will be given an extra 100 gold coins. Why? They say because Habib ibn Mudahir had long hair that he used to tie into braids. The two tresses that he had, they wanted to embarrass Habib. What did they do? They utilized the two braids of Habib and they tied it to the horse that was carrying Habib's head. So that the head of Habib ibn Mudahir, every time the horse would walk, that the head, because it was tied with the braids, would be hit with the knees of the horse, causing the head to what they understood to be more embarrassment. So the horse rider was given 100 extra gold coins. Rushayd al-Hajri says this. Now we understand now without a doubt that Rushayd al-Hajri is a personality to learn from. What does he say about each and every one of us sitting here tonight? When we say how difficult it is to hold down onto our faith at the end of time. Rushayd, he was killed by Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. The way in which he was killed, Ubaydullah says, bring me Rushayd. Rushayd is brought forward. When he is brought forward, Ibn Ziyad says to him, Rushayd, you are known as Manaya wal Balaya. You have knowledge of the outcome of people's life, how they will die. That's the knowledge that you say that you have? He says, Amir al-Mu'min has taught me. So he says, tell me, what did Amir say about how you will die? So Rushayd says, Amir al-Mu'minin has enlightened me that you are the one that will kill me. The manner in which you will kill me. Amir al-Mu'minin says that you will cut off my limbs, my hands and my feet and my tongue, and I will die as a causality. So Ibn Ziyad, what does he say in his limited intellect? He says, you know what, I want to make a liar out of Ali ibn Abi Talib. I'll cut off your hands and your feet. But I'll leave your tongue so that you can tell people that Amir al-Mu'minin is untruthful. Understanding this, they cut the hands and the feet of Rushayd al-Hajri. The one that is narrating this is the daughter of Rushayd. What does she say? She says, as I held the limbs of my father, his hand and his feet, and they're carrying her father, she looks towards Rushayd, her father, and says, Abati, ma ashaddu ijtihadak. This struggle, this strife, this steadfastness, how amazing is it that you're still steadfast and your hands and your feet have been cut. So for us, we to understand that we've given up our limbs for the path, for the correct path, for that which we believe in. We look at Rushayd to be an inspiration, but look at what Rushayd says. He says, you think that I have ijtihad in my religion? She says, yes, our father. He says, there will come a time, at the end of time, the foresight of people in their religion is greater than this ijtihad of mine. سيأتي يوم في آخر الزمان على أناس بصائرهم في دينهم أشد من اجتهادنا. That just to know that which is right and wrong and to decipher what's correct and incorrect in that particular time that they live in has a greater struggle than this struggle of ours. Who says this? Rushayd, one of the hierarchies of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Therefore tonight, when we try to analyze trials and tribulations in Islam, to understand the concept of trials within the Holy Quran, many of us, when we come towards this particular terminology, when someone comes forward and uses the word fitna, many of us, our mentality goes towards people that are troublesome, that are causing disunity, causing deviation, causing problems between two people or more, problems in communities, problems between marriage, people that are married. You'll find all these things that our mentality thinks when the word fitna is utilized. Now tonight, I want to look at fitna, the terminology, in a different light. The first of which we want to look at the etymology of fitna. The Arabic background, what does fitna actually mean? Number two, This understanding that fitna is something that is bad needs to be re-explored. Why? Because the Quran uses fitna, but it uses it in a very different light. Now tonight we're going to look at particular verses within the time frame that we have to see how Allah has utilized the word fitna within the Holy Quran and how different it is from what we understand. Number 3, and very interestingly, is Allah the only person that is granted the understanding of putting fitna into your life? Or does Allah showcase to us through the Holy Quran that there are other entities that can put fitna into your life? As in, all the fitan are from Allah, or are there other types of fitan that other entities are able to put in your life? And are each one of these fitan similar, or are their objectives different than one another? And finally, what is the root cause of Allah showering people and showering a community with fitan? We'll take a snippet from the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen to see what occurs in a community that Allah showers them with trials and tribulations. And understanding that, we need to understand how to avoid all these things in order for Allah to remove fitan or the negative fitan from our lives. So inshallah, we can start the topic tonight and learn from the Holy Quran and the words of Ahlul Bayt by blessing the Majlis with 3 of your loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. The word fitna in Arabic is utilized when extracting materials from the earth. How so? They say when a person goes and digs up elements from this earth, the elements don't come in gold blocks, do they? You need to put these elements under heat, under pressure, under severe conditions in order for you to remove those things that are not valuable, the dirt, the rocks that you do not want, the things that are of, minimal value, if any value at all. That heat and that pressure purifies that element to give you that which you're looking for, whether it be gold, whether it be silver, whether it be any other particular valuable gem. It has to go through that. And that's why they use the wording فَتَنْتُ الْفِضَّةَ وَالذَّهَبَ, meaning I put it through immense pressure, heat, in order for me to remove all that covers it and show the gem that it holds within it. Now when we take this particular concept and we apply it to trials and tribulations, fitan, when we look at this concept, we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He places a trial and tribulation within our life, is trying to showcase to us that Allah knows the reality within yourself. You may not know. So if Allah doesn't trial you, one day in the Day of Judgment, we will come, oh Allah, you didn't know. I had goodness within me, but I trialed you. Allah knew. He's trying to showcase to you through the trials and tribulations your inner gem. Or if you are lacking anything of quality inside you. So when you look at Iblis, on the outside, worship, reached the rank of what? Ta'awusul malaika. The angels were looking at him like, how do you pray so much? How do you worship so much? What gives you this strength? But when the time for trial and tribulation came, very simple. For us, someone tells us go prostrate. Allah says prostrate to Adam. Bismillah, Allah saying it, let's prostrate. Malaika, each and every one of them prostrated. But it's trying to showcase to us, why didn't Iblis prostrate? Allah knows he's not going to prostrate. But if He didn't put him through the trial, his true essence would not be seen by you and I today. That true essence cannot be utilized to teach us a lesson. So it's not to showcase. Allah knows. He's trying to showcase to each and every one of us what we have within us or what we lack. So the understanding when we move on to this topic is in the first level, the trial and tribulation that comes from Allah. Note these words very carefully. Trial and tribulation that comes from Allah is to test you, to showcase to you what you have inside from a gem, to strengthen your character, to showcase to you what you've done wrong, how you can achieve a better characteristic moving forward if you learn from your mistake, and so on. So now taking this concept of trial and tribulation, is fitna only used in a negative connotation within the Holy Quran? Or is fitna used in a positive and a negative connotation within the Holy Quran? We're going to look at different verses to understand what is meant by fitna within the Holy Quran. So inshallah we can start looking through the verses, starting with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala. The first verse we want to look at in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 193. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states within the Holy Quran, وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ حَتَّى لَا تَكُونَ فِتْنَةٌ. So Allah says to the Holy Prophet, and fight them so that there will not remain any fitna. So you go towards the tafasir. What does fitna mean in this particular verse in question? The tafasir come forward and say, fitna in this particular notion is talking about shirk. Shirk is a trial at that particular moment in the Rasul's life, and his companions had a problem. So he says, fight the disbelievers so there's no longer any shirk. So many of us will say, well, that's for them. How can we learn from this particular verse of fitna? We come forward and say, yes, there's a major shirk that we can look at. It's in joining partners towards Allah. Then there's a minor concept of shirk. What do you mean when we say minor shirk? It means that we understand Allah, His oneness, His position in Islam, but when it comes to my actions, I enjoin Allah's commandments. How? Example. Allah says to me, wake up for Fajr. Example. We understand Allah. We understand the concept. Islamically, He is the one that we need to listen to, apply His teachings, halal, haram, that which is wajib. Now, if I had nothing else in my heart, love for the warmth of my bed, love for sleep, love for rest, that I only had love for Allah, there wouldn't be a problem for me waking up for Fajr. No problem. Why? Because I'm not enjoining anything else. Shaitan says, don't worry, just snooze for a third time, for a fourth time. Fifth, sunrise. Sorry, get up, take the kids to school. So you find, in the minor level, that my actions may not meet my understanding of the concept of Allah. I may have a minor aspect that I enjoin other than Allah in my heart. And that's why when Allah says, my skies cannot contain me, nor can my earth, but the heart of my believer can contain me. But if you put other than Allah in the heart, what happens then? That's the question. Oh Allah, allow our hearts to be steadfast on your path. Number one, Allah uses fitna in the concept of shirk in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 193. The second time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses fitna within the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Anbiya, which is chapter 21, ayah number 35. He says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wa nabluwakum bish-sharri wal khayri fitnatan. Now, very clear cut. We stated earlier that many of us look at fitna to be that which is bad, full stop. Allah, what does He say in the Holy Quran? In Surah Al-Anbiya, He says, we trial you in that which is good and that which is bad. Very clearly, وَنَبْلُوَكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً. So you think for yourself that you're in a trial and tribulation, someone has passed away. That's only a trial. No. When Allah gives you money, that's also a trial. That, according to the Holy Quran, that is a concept of fitna in itself. Because where did you get that money? How are you going to invest that money? What have you given back towards Allah? What have you given to the community? What have you gone to the centers that are teaching and bringing up the next generation? Qarun. Many of us will look at the story of Qarun and we just brief over it. Qarun, in the time of Nabi Allah Musa, Qarun had wealth like no one else. No one else. The amount of wealth Qarun had. Go and read the story of Qarun. That when Nabi Allah Musa comes towards Qarun, he says, all of a sudden, Allah has made it obligatory for you to give charity now from your wealth. He says, really? But I've worked hard for all this. Musa saying, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just give a little back. He says, how much do I have to give back? He says, for every 1,000, give one. Yeah, for example, 1,000 cattle, just give one cattle. 1,000 gold coins, just give one. But you know, it multiplies if you have the wealth of Qarun. He couldn't handle it. Sometimes, subhanAllah, when we have nothing, that we give so much. But when Allah blesses us, all of a sudden, we become very, stingy with what we give back. Qarun all of a sudden brings the people of Musa, Bani Israel, and he begins. Shaitan is there. Test, fitna. He says to them, Bani Israel, he says, Bani Israel, you've worked hard for your money? As we all know, Bani Israel. You've worked hard for your money? He says, yes. He says, Musa wants to take your money. Will you allow this? He says, no, by Allah, we'll never allow it. What should we do? He says, leave it with me. How? He says, tomorrow, when he preaches, I'll bring forward a lady to bear witness that which is untrue and remove him from his place. So true enough, the next day comes, Musa alayhi salam is preaching and he's talking about punishment. When he's talking, all of a sudden, someone gets up by the name of Qarun. Musa, you're speaking to everyone about punishment. Does this punishment apply to you as well? He says, of course. Me, you, anyone that disobeys Allah, this punishment applies to. So he turns around and he says, Musa, therefore I want everyone to heed something. What's this something? He brings forward this lady. Go and tell them. Tell them how he has performed an act of indecency with you. So this lady, so subhanAllah, we're talking about fitna on one level. There's another fitna in this story where this lady can go forward, gain that money that was promised to her by Qarun by witnessing falsely against Musa. Or she's in a state where she's like, I don't want money, but I want the truth to be known. So she says, no, by Allah, Musa has not performed such a thing. The whole story is that he promised me wealth if I was to say this lie about the Prophet of Allah. So the reply was what? All of a sudden, Musa, once knowing this, Allah gives him the ability, whatever you want, do with Qarun. So he prays until Qarun, the earth swallows him, and swallows him, and swallows him. The understanding there from the Holy Quran is fitna isn't only that which is hardship, that you are tested with that which Allah blesses you. A position, what do you do with it? Wealth, how do you use it? Children, how do you raise them? Again, different light of what fitna is within the Holy Quran. Surah Yunus, ayah number 85, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, you'll find he says, رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً. Oh Allah, do not make us a fitna. So we said on the first level, fitna is shirk. Fitna can be good and bad. All of a sudden, in the chapter of Yunus, the people of Musa are saying, oh Allah, do not make us a fitna. Now what does it mean? The translation showcases to us that they are saying to Allah, oh Allah, do not make us an example for those that will come after us. Look at the Holy Quran, many examples of people that disobeyed and how they were punished for their disobedience. Now, very interestingly, in light of the recent movements that we have, you'll find if you want to showcase and really look at the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, sometimes in forensics, when you look at a dead body, when you look at a dead body, you look at, for example, let's say a person that died natural death. You'll say, you know, there's no complications, he passed. You see other times a person, for example, you know, has been, you know, accidentally cut a limb, for example, and he died from that. Other times you'll see a person in forensics where he's been, let's say, killed in a very vicious manner that showcases how angry a person that took his life or her life was with them. So understanding this, that, you know, there's all examples for us from the Holy Quran. When we look at the story of the people of Prophet Lut, if we just look at it, you look through the Holy Quran about punishments, you look at the punishment that was given to the people of Lut. There was a sound that killed them. So they've already died. Allah, after that, has rained down stones from hellfire and then flipped the earth upside down on top of them. So how much is trying to showcase to us that he detests that particular act that those people were practicing. Surah Yunus says, "Oh Allah, do not make us an example for those that come." But he uses the word fitna. Now there's others that we want to look into, but inshallah I want to move on for the time. But the understanding that we can get from this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within the Holy Quran showcases there are different applications to the word fitna, as we've just discussed. Now, the question comes forward, is Allah the only entity that can put fitna into your life, or are there other entities that can place fitna into your life? So Allah, we stated very clearly, puts a fitna into your life to what? Just making sure everyone's paying attention. Why does Allah put fitna into your life? Trial and tribulation, to test you, ahsant. And understanding, you know, for the youth here, I'll give an example. It's a World Cup as an example. If you want to lift that World Cup trophy, you have to go through every other team. I mean, you have luck on the way, depending on the draw. But at the end of the road, you have to beat at least the biggest teams in order for you to lift that trophy. Likewise, when you go through life, Allah is trying to put obstacles in front of you. In order for you to attain heaven, you need to pass these trials and tribulations in the best manner that Allah keeps ticking you off until you attain that place that is awaiting you. And that's why when we look at the trials that Allah puts into our life, let's say He takes away a loved one. Let's say that Allah puts sickness into our life. Things that we deem to be hurtful. That He says, in these times, you need to practice patience. Patience. And Allah is removing and purifying you from sin through these trials. And if you are removed from all sins, then Allah is elevating you in rank. That's why when you look at the prophets, you look at, for example, Sayyidah Maryam, the trials and tribulations they went through, the hardships they went through, it's not because they were sinful, but rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to elevate them and elevate them and elevate them in rank. And when it comes to times where Allah blesses you, position, power, children, wealth, you need to be thankful. You need to be shakur in the time of blessings and sabur in the time of calamities, trials, tribulations, hardships. And that's why when we have the tradition that comes forward and says use 5 before 5, that we need to apply these, that we use our free time before we become busy, that we use our wealth before poverty, that we use our health before our sickness, we use our youth before our old age, and we utilize our life before our death. These are the elements that Allah trials us with. How have you used these 5? Now the first entity, let's look at Allah putting fitna into your life for trial and tribulation, ikhtibar in Arabic. The second entity that puts fitna into your life is shaitan. Not all fitnas are trial and tribulation. Some are placed in front of you by shaitan. How can we prove this point? From the Holy Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Surah Al-A'raf, ayah number 27. Allah states, Ya bani Adam la yaftinannakum ash-shaytan. O Bani Adam, do not let Iblis put fitna into your life. La yaftinannakum ash-shaytan. How does shaitan put fitna into your life? He puts that which is false, but covers it with truth. So to you, it looks like it's truth, but when you take the bite, then you see the poison within it. As an example, Amir al-Mu'mineen one day comes back from war. He sees one of the companions that lived there. He says, why did we not see you on the battlefield? So the person looks at Amir and says, oh Amir, I came to fight alongside you. He says, why didn't you? He says, I heard a voice that kept ringing in my mind. He says, what did that voice say? He says, that voice said 2 statements. It says, Al-Qatil wal-Maqtul fin-nar. The killer and the killed are in hellfire. So I thought to myself, I'm going the first Muslim civil war, Muslims versus Muslims, Amir al-Mu'mineen one side, Malik, Ammar. Then you had the other side, Talha, Zubair, Aisha. Says, I was clouded my judgment. And I had this ringing in my mind saying the killer and the killed, both in hellfire. Oh, Amir, can you shed a light? He says, no. This is the fitna that shaitan put you in. He says, shaitan says truth, but he covers it with falsehood. How? He says his statement wasn't false. His statement was true, but the way that you understood it was incorrect. Why? He says, because I am with the truth, being Ali. علي مع الحق والحق مع علي يدور معه حيثما دار. The truth is with Ali. Ali is with the truth. It revolves around him wherever so he goes. So he says, therefore, anything that the truth strikes, meaning anyone that the army of truth kills, hellfire. And anyone that kills from the army of the truth, also in hellfire. Therefore what? Al-Qatil wal-Maqtul. The killer of the truth and the one that the truth kills are in hellfire. But shaitan, the way that he worded it, clouded the judgment for this person. And we can be clouded as well. And that's why when we look at the trials or the fitan that shaitan puts, it's not to test us. It's to divert us. Deviation, ighwa. Why does he say? For example, in Surah Sad, ayah number 82, shaitan promises Allah, what does he say? He says, لَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ. I will deviate them. You look at these humans, you want me to prostrate to them? Watch how I deviate them by putting fitan into their life. Allah tests shaitan, ighwa, the third entity that puts fitan into your life are humans. How can we prove this? The Holy Quran again. Surah Al-Hadid, ayah number 14. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. That you yourselves have caused fitna to one another. How? How? We said Allah tests shaitan to deviate. Humans put fitan amongst people to corrupt them. Fasad. Fasad, when you look at fasad, you look at the time of, let's say, the prophets, of the imams. Fasad can have different lenses. Muawiyah, as an example, He was the king of this, corrupting people's minds. As we know, corrupted a whole generation. So much that for 70 years, he made them curse Amir al-Mu'mineen and his sons on the pulpits. Until a moment came when Amir al-Mu'mineen dies, early on in this reign, the people of Sham, what was their reply? It says, Ali is killed. How did he die? What was the reply? He died in Salat. You know what they said? Did Ali pray? How much are you able to corrupt people's minds that they didn't even believe that the master, Amir al-Mu'mineen himself, prayed? Look at the corruption. And that's why when we look at stories that happened after Muawiyah, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan as an example, one of the Khalifas that preceded Muawiyah sat on the throne. As you know, people used to come collect their wealth that came from the outskirts of Sham. One of them came a little bit early. He came on a Friday, just before the khutbah of Jum'ah. So he's sitting down. He's from the outskirts, not from Sham. He said, instead of just taking my wealth and going, let me just sit down, listen to the Jum'ah khutbah. So he's listening, and all of a sudden they start the khutbah by cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know what this man does? He grabs the nearest thing and hits the lecturer on the head. So the people are like, hold on, this is our lecturer, how dare you? Smack him across the face. So they take him and the lecturer towards Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, and this moved. And so they take him to Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, and Abdul Malik, look at the first thing he asks. He says, you're not from here, are you? He says, no, I'm not. I'm from the outskirts coming to get my money and going back towards my village or town. So he says, why did you hit him? Look at the reply of this man. He says, I hit him. Let me ask you a question, Abdul Malik. You have one daughter. He says, I do. He says, would you ever marry your daughter to someone that is indecent? He says, I would not. He says, how dare you say that Rasulullah married his only daughter to someone that you curse on the pulpits? He looked at him and says, you know what? How much do we owe you? So he told him this much. He says, I'll double it on one condition. He says, you'll double my wealth. He says, I'll double it on the condition you do not stay overnight. You leave right now. Why? Let's read between the lines. Muawiyah says to Yazid in his will, he says, I have trained and I have used my expertise, my wealth, my knowledge to make this army what it is for you. Anyone gives you trouble, you take this army towards them, they'll solve it. And that's why, what did he do? Sends the army towards Imam al-Hussein, kills the grandson. Sends him towards the Kaaba, they put the Kaaba's Judar on fire. They go towards Medina, start a war, the blood nearly reaches meters from the grave of Rasulullah. Wherever you want. But do not let the army stay anywhere overnight. In the will, what does it say? لَفَسَدَتْ أَخْلَاقُهُم, meaning their morality will become corrupt. Between the lines, what is he trying to say? If you stay overnight, people might ask questions, then they'll know the truth. Then there's a problem if they know what the truth is. I've been trying to brainwash them for years. Bring them back as soon as what you wanted is accomplished. So you bring them back, and this can be seen in many occasions in the life, if you want to read about Muawiyah and how he tried to impact and brainwash the people that lived under him. Now, on an ending notion, we may ask ourselves, what is the cause of Allah showering us with fitan? Because a person comes towards Amir al-Mu'mineen and he says the statement, O Amir, a'udhu billah min al-fitan, that I seek refuge in Allah from the fitan. So the Amir looks at him and he says, oh man, do you wish to die? He says, what do you mean? He says, oh man, fitan are part of life. He says, what should I say? Because you know, as we stated, wealth, position, your spouses, your children are all fitan within your life. He says, you should say, a'udhu billah min mudhillatil fitan. Those fitan that will deviate me from the path, remove me from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Say, I seek refuge in those types of fitan within my life. The cause, Amir al-Mu'minin says, are two things that Allah showers a community. أهواء تتبع وأحكام تبتدع. أهواء تتبع, meaning I have a desire and I go after my desire and does not matter what or who stands in front of me. As an example, there were personalities that wanted the throne of power after Rasulullah in Islam. We all agree. We all agree. There were people that wanted the throne of Khilafah after Rasulullah, knowing very well that Amir al-Mu'mineen was the rightful leader and Khalifa chosen by Allah after Rasulullah. But they wanted the seat of power. The first reason that Allah showers a community with trials and tribulations and fitan, ahwa'un tuttaba'. The desire for the chair was there. Saqifa, prophet. Chair was taken. The door, the fire, the rib. Nothing will stop their desire there and then. Umar ibn Sa'ad likewise had a desire for the governorship of Ray. Shaitan comes, he says, you want this? You have to kill Hussein. He says, no problem. I have a desire, nothing stops me. The second, ahkamun tubtada, rulings that are changed. Tubtada means bid'ah, coming from something that is an innovation. Ahkamun tubtada. When we go towards the Shura of 6 after Umar, the way that they chose Uthman, who knows? 6 people in a room. Abdul Rahman, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, Ali, Uthman, Zubayr, Talha. They offered it to Amir al-Mu'mineen first. Did you know? They offered the Khilafah after Umar ibn al-Khattab to who? To Amir al-Mu'mineen. On the condition, you follow the Quran, the Sunnah of Rasulullah, the Sunnah of Umar, and the Sunnah of Abu Bakr. You want the Khilafah, you do this. Amir is like, no. I will follow the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. Why am I following the Sunnah of Abu Bakr and Umar if it's not intertwined with the Sunnah of Rasulullah? ما أتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه. Whatever the Rasul gave you, take. Whatever he forbade you, leave it away. Do not bring new innovations. أحكام تبتدع. They go towards Uthman. Uthman, do you accept? Open arms, Bismillah. So you'll find there, the ahkam came, the adhan was changed, the wudu was changed, Friday prayers was prayed on a Wednesday, Salatul Subuh was made 4 rak'at, the guy was drunk. Game, thrown from one person to another. That was what Islam became. And then they ask, why is Allah showering us with fitan? Amir says it very clearly. These 2 things that we allow to happen. Now, understanding this, someone will ask the question very easily as we end tonight and go towards the musibah of Imam Al-Redha. How do we overcome this? Amir, what does he say? Say, أعوذ بالله من مضلات الفتن, ضلال, deviation. He's given us the anecdote. He's given us the cure very clearly. What does he say? For ضلالة, he says, hold on to 2 weighty things. If you do, لن تضلوا بعدي أبدا. 2 weighty things, hold on to them. Hold on to the Quran. وعترتي أهل بيتي. 2 things. Simple on the tongue, how difficult it is in practice. How difficult it is. Ya Rasulullah, man comes, I love you, O Rasulullah. And the time, it says, if you follow me, prepare for poverty. It says, I love Ali as well. It says, prepare for bala, calamities. Prepare yourself. You want to be of the followers? It's not going to be an easy road. Hold on, but to these 2 weighty things. And when we look at this particular notion, we want to analyze as we go towards the musibah of Imam Al-Redha. What did they do when we look at how they took care of the family of Rasulullah? How did they treat the family of Rasulullah? When we say, take care of my family, we look at Rasulullah, how did they treat him? The closest companions were there choosing a person to sit on the throne while Rasulullah hasn't been buried. Rasulullah, 4 people washed him, by the way. The companions weren't there. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Al-Abbas, Al-Fadl, and the servant of Al-Fadl by the name of Saleh. 4 people washed the Prophet. Where was everyone else? They didn't take care of him. You think they're going to take care of the family? Fatima, and what happened to Fatima to Zahra? Ali, and what happened to Ali? Hassan, and what we mentioned, that his own liver was regurgitated, and Hussein in Karbala, the itra. Take care of this. I ask you for nothing else except al-mawaddata fil qurba. Just these, take care of them. That's what I leave behind. You'll find many of them were poisoned. Amir al-Mu'mineen struck Fatima behind the door and the wall. And we go towards those when we look at Imam Al-Redha alayhi salam. Again, his popularity grew and grew until Al-Ma'mun decided that night that I can no longer allow Ali ibn Musa to remain alive. That my position all of a sudden has become under pressure. That I cannot allow him to gain more followers and supporters. He's going to overthrow me. I need to remove him from the equation. And that's why Imam Al-Redha, he takes one of his companions by the name of Abu Salt. He says to him, "Oh Abu Salt, I'm going somewhere now. I'm going to Al-Ma'mun where he has asked for me. Know very well, Abu Salt, if I come out of that area, come out of the palace, if my head is uncovered under the sky, then talk to me. But if my head is covered, oh Abu Salt, do not speak to me, only follow me in my footsteps." You find Ali ibn Musa al-Redha goes towards the palace of Al-Ma'mun. When he enters the palace, you'll find he's forced into eating that which he does not want to eat. Al-Ma'mun sees Imam Al-Redha leaving after he ate what he forced him to eat, and he says to him, "Where is it that you're going? Oh Yabna Rasulullah," he says to him, "to that place in which you have sent me, O Ma'mun," saying that, "O Ma'mun, you have poisoned me, you've sent me towards my grave, I'm going towards my household." As he leaves, Abu Salt is waiting for him, pacing up and down. Will he see his Imam with his head covered, or will he see his Imam with his head uncovered? There was a very short distance for where the Imam resided and where the palace was of Al-Ma'mun. You'll find the tradition says that Imam Al-Redha would leave the palace with his head covered. In that short distance between the palace and his house which he resided, they would say that your Imam would fall and stand, and fall and stand. Some traditions come forward and say so much as 50 times he would fall and try to stand again until he enters the house. Then he looks towards Abu Salt. He says, "Oh Abu Salt, close all the doors and all the windows. I want no one to enter into the house and leave me to rest in my chambers." You'll find Abu Salt closes all the doors, closes all the windows. As he does such, he sees a young 7-year-old enter the house. He looks at him, he says, "Oh young man, I've closed all the doors. From where have you come?" He says, "I've come from for the one that has called upon me, O Abu Salt." have you not recognized your Imam? He rushes towards his father, Ali ibn Musa al-Redha. He comes towards his father, he sees him. They say that Ali ibn Musa was moving as such on the ground, as if he was struck by a poisonous snake, and the venom is overtaking him, could not control himself. Once he would put one leg up and the other down. Another time he would raise the other leg from the agony that he was in. He would say, "Oh my son Jawad," he would say to him, "Allow me to rest on the earth." His son would say, "Why, oh my father, do you want to lay down on the earth?" He would say to him, "Oh my son, I want to feel that which Abdullah felt on the 10th of Muharram. I want to be on the sand like my grandfather before me." But I ask all those that know what occurred in Karbala, I ask the question, when you're laying on that sand under the shelter of your house, was that sand cold, or was that sand burning from the heat of Karbala? I want to ask you, before you laid on that sand, did you drink water for the past 3 days, or was there no water given to you? I want to ask, before you lay down on that earth, oh Ali ibn Musa, did you have women that you left behind that you were afraid that will be taken captive? Were you ever in a situation where there was a lady, there was a young daughter that held onto your leg saying, "Abba, Abba, stay with us, strike my head like you stroke over the orphans"? Is there anyone that you left behind, oh Ali ibn Musa? Oh Ali, before you fell upon the earth, were you of those that remembered the one that his own 6-month-old was struck in his hands? Did you, before laying on that ground, see the spitting image of Rasulullah butchered in front of you? Were you of those people? Or do you remember a time where your grandfather's back was broken as he returned from the Euphrates? You'll find in that very moment, as he lay down on the ground in the lap of his son Jawad, when he would lie down, I want you to create an image in your mind. A few notions ago, a few nights ago, we remembered Rasulullah as he passed, his head was on the lap of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Fatima, when she passed, her head was on the lap of Ali. When Ali passed, his head was on the lap of Hassan. Hassan, when he passed, his head was on the lap of Abdullah. But I ask each and every one of you, oh Sahib al-Zaman, forgive me, but where was the head of Abdullah? Who stayed there by the head? Who stayed on the chest? And who struck Abdullah? Inna lillah وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون.
الفاطمة لا خلت الحسين مجدلا وقد مات عطشانا بشط فراتي. My dear brothers and sisters, please stand for some latmiya, inshallah. مشتاق لك يا ابن الحسن وتوسلت يوفك، ليش أنا ما أشوفك كل جمعة بدموعي وترتل حروفك. مشتاق لك يا ابن الحسن وتوسلت يوفك، ليش انا ما اشوفك كل جمعة بدموعي تترتل حروفك. سلام يا مهدي متى ترانا ونراك، سلام يا مهدي متى ترانا ونراك، سلام يا مهدي متى ترى. Brothers, don't be shy. سلام يا مهدي متى ترانا ونراك، سلام يا مهدي متى ترانا ونراك، سلام يا مهدي ناونا. سنين عشت منتظرك، سنين اناشد وينك يا الغالي وذابحني الحنين. تعال ولو بس تعرف خيال يسكن قلبي متعذب من كثر الونين. احكي لك وتاني جوابك، اشكي لك وحرف عذابك، ادعي لك تحوف غيابك. هالدنيا ما بيها تعوم، ما تسوى من دونك، لذتها بعيونك. ما قلك شلوني بس اسأل شلونك. اسيح يا الغالي وين انت واتمنى لقاك. سلام يا مهدي متى ترانا ونراك، سلام يا مهدي متى ترانا ونراك. مولاي صاحب الزمان أين الأمان، أين الأمان. مولاي صاحب الزمان أين. Brothers, make a circle here, don't be shy. يا صاحب الزمان أين الأمان. Come forward. مولاي صاحب الزمان أين الأمان، أين الأمان. مولاي انظر كربلاء، مولاي انظر كربلاء، قد جسدت معنى ولا فيها قضى خير الملا، فيها قضى خير الملا. أهلا ونفسا بذلا، أهلا ونفسا بذلا من أجل تثبيت الجهاد، من أجل أخبار الفساد. أين الأمان، أين الأمان. مولاي صاحب الزمان أين الأمان، أين الأمان. مولاي all together. أين الأمان، أين الأمان. مولاي صاحب الزمان. مولاي حز نحره، مولاي حز نحره، مولاي رد صدره، مولاي ساق خدره، مولاي هد قبره. مولاي هد قبره ورغم هذا انتصرا وكل ظلم كسرا. أين الأمان، أين الأمان. مولاي صاحب الزمان أين الأمان، أين الأمان. مولاي صاحب الزمان الأمان أين الأمان. مولاي انظر للعنيد، مولاي انظر للعنيد ملقا على حر السعيد. وزينب ثوب الشهيد وزينب ثوب الشهيد عن ندوة تأبينا تريد رباه أقبل طاهرا قربان حق بالثرى أين الأمان أين الأمان مولاي صاحب الزمان أمان أين الأمان مولاي صاحب الزمان نصرك يا أعلى الأركان نصرك يا أعلى الأركان ورد ليس له من ثاني وحسين في كل مكان فحسين في كل زمان اسم يقتحم الظلمات وبه تشتعل الثورات يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله all together يا الله حسين الفجر أعظم ثورة حسين الفجر أعظم ثورة أول عالم من دم نحره ما خاب اللي لاذب كتره منثوري للشيعة بنصره منك تستلم شهناك حزت نفسي ورفعت ذات يا الله يا الله يا الله الله يا الله آهات يسمعها النجم آهات يسمعها النجم وبكاء باطنه العزم ومواكبها ربه الوهم لا يكسفها إلا تنمو ورثاء فوق الكلمات يسبك بالمهر قربان يا الله يا الله يا الله معراج القربان الأعظم بس حروف اسمك تتكلم اسمك حتى الباري تكلم لما صلى عليك وسلم ولما يرخص للعبرات ما يفهم هاي الكلمات يا الله يا الله الله غايب من يشهر فقاره غايب من يشهر فقاره للذلحول المنحر ثاره قبر الظالم يشعل ناره يحرق داره حرقوا داره جينا نمشي في كربلاء منها جينا نمشي في كربلاء ضيعينها وبيها زينب قالوا واحد وقع جينا ننشد وين ابو فاضل وقع ما تدلون الشريعة وينها أبد والله يا زهرة ما ننسى حسينا أبد والله ما ننسى حسينا أبد والله ما ننسى حسينا لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمدا رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمدا رسول الله عليا ولي الله عليا ولي الله عليا ولي الله. نادى علي يا مظهر العجائب، نادى علي يا مظهر العجائب، تجده عونا لك في النوائب. كل هم وغم سينجلي، كل هم وغم سينجلي بعظمتك، بنبوتك، بولايتك. علي 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 علي. حيا على البكاء في ماتم الحسين مظلوم كربلاء، سلطان كربلاء، سلطان كربلاء. حسين سلطان كربلاء، عطشان كربلاء، سلطان كربلاء. أين الطالب بدم المقتول بكربلاء؟ أين الطالب بدم المقتول بكربلاء؟ أين الطالب بدم المقتول بكربلاء؟ اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك، وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك توها وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Brothers and sisters, there's been a request for someone's auntie who has had a stroke in Lebanon in the past few days. If we can all together recite Ayah Sharif, hoping not just for her but for all of those who are in need of dua, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء. 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 For all the marhumin and marhumat, for anyone that's been requested, if you can recite the Fatiha before it aloud. Salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.